In today's video, I want to be debunking the vegan cult, and that doesn't mean I'm debunking veganism, okay? I want to debunk like this cult, which is pretty much all the vegan messages we get bombarded with in the West. Probably a lot of other parts of the world too. So what is this vegan cult? I guess most of you are probably familiar with it. It's the idea that if you're not vegan, then you're Hitler, right? So I want to try to help people find some more sensible solutions than going vegan, because I think going vegan is a really bad solution, and I'm going to give you some reasons why. So let's first look at some data here. This is from Psychology Today. 86% of vegetarians quit being vegetarian, and 70% of vegans do, and they go back to eating meat. Now, the real percentage, I think, is a lot higher, because there's all these people who claim to be vegetarian and vegans who actually eat meat. Like the governor of New York, he says he's vegetarian, but he eats all kinds of meat. He just lies about it to make people happy. And Peter Singer, the leader of the vegan movement, he eats meat. He eats shellfish, he eats clams, he eats oysters, he eats mussels, So he has a pretty good reason why, but the point is he still identifies as a vegan and vegetarian, so he's clearly not. And there's like a trillion people who say they're vegetarian, but they actually eat fish, and they're pescatarians. I once dated a woman, and she said, I'm a strict vegetarian. I'm like, why are you eating my fish then? Right? You're like, oh, fish. Don't you know vegetarians can eat fish? So there's all this silly stuff too, right? So the real percentage who quit is probably even higher. So anyways, if being vegan is such a good solution for animal ethics, then why are 86% of people quitting, right? Like, if it's such an easy, good solution, I would think more people would stick to it, right? And, why did I quit being vegetarian and vegan? It's because of health. I got really sick. I became super pale, and they always tell you, oh, being pale is healthy. No, it's not healthy. And I became like a lot fatter. I gained like 10 kilograms of weight. I had really bad anxiety. I had brain fog all the time. I was really confused, and I was really tired. I lost all my physical energy. That really sucked, right? So, it feels like you're barely alive, and that's not something that people enjoy. And you're going to the hospital all the time, right? Every week you're going to the hospital getting blood work checked. I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why am I so sick? And the doctors tell you, okay, your blood all looks fine, right? You're eating these diets that they're telling you to eat. I'm like, when they always tell you you're eating the wrong vegetarian diet, I'm like, okay, you tell me exactly what to eat, and I'll eat exactly what you list. And they'll never give me a list. They'll never give me a list because they don't want to be responsible. There's other reasons too, right? I mean, some people quit for social reasons. Some people quit just because they miss the taste of meat, or there's other things like that. But for me, it was definitely health. I felt like crap, and as soon as I quit being vegetarian and vegan, I felt good again. So that's why I didn't go back to being vegetarian or vegan. Now, a lot of these vegan arguments are based on really bad logic. Like, one is on speciesism. Okay, so it's the idea like animals are worth the same as humans. That's not true. Even animals are not worth the same as other animals. Like, if you had to choose between a dolphin's life or a clam, it makes sense to choose the dolphin's life. It has like a higher quality of sentience. It has like a higher capacity to suffer. It has a higher capacity to feel pleasure, presumably. And we don't know that for sure, right? It's impossible to measure like something's experience. But, if I had to place my money, I would bet the dolphin has a higher quality of experience than like this clam or a barnacle or something, right? And then there's quantity of experience too, right? Like, a cockatoo lives like 90 some years, whereas, a lot of insects live a week or less, right? Some of them live under 1 week time. So, quantity of life matters. But I'm saying, there's some rationality to speciesism, right? And another part that's really important is rational self-interest, okay? Humans aren't altruistic beings. We're selfish by nature. So if your moral system, benefits some other species more than humans, it's not going to be sustainable, because we are humans, okay? We care more about ourselves than we care about other things, because we are part of the human species. If you treat the human species badly, then it has an impact to potentially affect us, right? And that's not an ethical argument. What I'm saying has nothing to do with ethics. I'm just saying in terms of actually making this thing work, You have to care about rational self-interest to some extent, okay? Otherwise, what you're doing is unsustainable. It's like if I tell people, well, the ethical thing to do is to give up all your money to starving Africans, right? And to live like a homeless person. Sure, that is the ethical thing to do, but it's not a very realistic thing to expect of people. It's like we're expecting people to be a saint by default. No, like it's like you're a saint if you can move past your rational self-interest, right? So, in order to have morality be sustainable, you have to factor in like self-interest to some extent, okay? Like it has to be convenient, it has to not take a whole lot of effort, and it has to not make you really sick and feel like terrible all the time, right? There's all these other ways I could be helping the world, and if one doesn't make me super sick and take a whole bunch of effort, like that to me makes a lot more sense. Like there's all these wars taking place in the world. Why don't I protest this war? So the next thing is like we get always fed this like one solution fits all. Vegan is the only way to go if you care about animals. Okay, so some people really do like animals a lot. I don't like hate animals, right? I think they're worth a lot less than humans, but I don't think they're worthless. Okay, so I think that's like another flawed argument when you just like if you're just beating like a random cow to death for entertainment. I think that's wrong. Okay, that's morally wrong. We shouldn't say animals have no worth, but we should say they have less worth. Okay, I think that's a sensible position to take. And even if you love animals a lot and you think they have more worth than humans, you like them more than humans, well, I'm going to try to give you some sensible solutions to animal ethics that doesn't involve going vegan. Okay, so one really simple example we could do is old age eating meat. So what I mean by that is an animal dies of old age or natural causes and then you eat it. Okay, so what's the issue there? There's no ethical issue there. Like if I have a farm and the animals just grow old and they die and we eat them when they die, I don't see any moral issue with that whatsoever. Like you're not imposing any suffering on the animal, you're not even killing the animal, you're not robbing it of any pleasures. And what about roadkill? I mean, that's not a very practical solution, but like obviously you could eat roadkill. A more practical solution is eating wasted meat, okay? So this is a really good way to do things. Like every night, if you go to Co-op or Walmart or whatever, they throw out a lot of meat in their dumpsters. You go to a restaurant, they're always throwing out a lot of meat. So if you eat that meat, it in no way causes animal suffering. It's just meat that was going into the garbage. So that's another perfectly ethical way to eat meat. And then there's the next thing, which is like eating carnivores. This is another way you could do things. Like if you eat like a carnivore, you're saving the life of like 10 herbivores, and these herbivores are going to die a very brutal death. Like if you watch how a wolf eats a rabbit, it's an unbelievably cruel and painful death, right? So eat those carnivores, right? Now, on from a compassion point of view, nobody's going to like that. Okay, I would say I'm a pretty compassionate person. I don't like the idea of killing like a carnivore to save a herbivore, right? But like from a logical point of view, it does make sense. And like I know it's not practical to eat wolves, but most fish are carnivorous. So there's a whole lot of fish you can eat. Like a salmon is carnivorous. Shark is carnivorous. There's a whole bunch of fish that are like tuna. I'm pretty sure tuna is carnivorous, right? There's a lot of fish you can eat, and so to me that's like a sensible alternative as well, right? And maybe that one doesn't feel so good, but logically I think it's a pretty reasonable argument, right? And then there's a whole bunch of other things too, like if you can provide an animal a better life on like a farm than it would have in nature. Like in nature, maybe it's cold, there's predators trying to kill it all the time, it's sick, doesn't get veterinary help and all this, right? Well, if the animal has an overall much better life on a farm than it does in nature, then could you ethically justify eating it and taking some of its life, robbing some pleasure from it? I think you could. Okay, I think like if an animal just has a really crappy life in nature and you can give it a decent life that's shorter in a farm, well, quality matters more than quantity, right? So maybe that's a reasonable justification for ethical farms. If you have a farm that just treats animals humanely, that's not such a bad thing. Now, this will help vegans here. If you're a vegan watching this video, you can eat animal products, okay? Just get like the certified organic stuff because the animals were treated really well, okay? I'm going to tell you how I know that because I have a pretty convincing argument. I told that to a vegan and he challenged me. He said, I don't believe you. So he actually took the time to go to all these farms that I said were, ethically treating animals. And he told me, yeah, okay, you're right. They do treat animals pretty well. I don't really see any reason why you couldn't eat the dairy from this farm, right? He doesn't have an ethical objection himself, right? So you can go to these farms and check out the conditions yourself, and a lot of these times these animals are very happy and living pretty good lives. So these are all solutions. Like if we really care a lot about animals, but some people care about animals, but not so much. That's more like my position. Okay, so I think they have worth, but I don't care nearly as much about them as like humans. Like to me, stopping like the Ukraine war or something, that's a million times more important than stopping factory farming, in my view. Okay, so what are some other like considerations we can have? There's a whole bunch of other things we can do to drastically reduce animal suffering without going vegetarian or vegan. These solutions don't solve the problem, but they drastically reduce it, right? So like one thing is you can just eat less meat. That's a really simple solution, right? But another one I think is going to be a lot more useful is you can look at the suffering that different animals go through on a factory farm. And I think most vegans will agree with me, pigs have it the worst. Pigs are pretty smart animals, and they're locked in, at least in Canada. So in other countries, it's different, okay? I'm from Canada. Usually the pig farms, they lock them in these small cages, and they can't even move around, right? So they, in my opinion, pigs probably suffer the most, and like cows probably suffer the least. Like I've been to a million of these ranches. The cows have lots of space to roam around. Aside from the point where they're slaughtered, their lives look pretty good for the most part. So you can say like I know it's more complicated than what I'm saying here, but like obviously animals don't all suffer equally, even within like factory farms, right? So if you want to just be more ethical, you can create some like kind of hierarchy of suffering, right? And try to eat in a more ethical way. Try to avoid like certain meats, right? So another thing that like you can look at is like the quantity of meat an animal produces. For example, like a buffalo or a cow can feed like 150 people, whereas like a chicken makes like one meal, right? So that's another thing you can factor in when trying to eat more ethically, right? And like I say, being vegan and vegetarian, if you love animals, that's a good solution. I think like all these people who give these anti-vegetarian and anti-vegan arguments, like the things they're saying don't make much sense. Okay, they're saying like, oh, plants have feelings too. I'm like, they might, that's possible, but like, which is more probable here? Okay, this thing that's really similar to you having like the same pain that you do, or this thing that's like really different. Like even a rock might have feelings, but I'm pretty sure you're more likely to than a rock. So a lot of these arguments against vegetarian and veganism, I don't consider them very intellectually serious, right? So yeah, if you really love animals and you're okay being vegan, doesn't make you feel all bad, good for you. Go ahead and do it. I think that's a good thing. But stop saying, to all these people many of them who do care about animals, and telling them you're a piece of garbage if you don't go vegan. Because like the reality is, like I just pointed out like 20 other solutions, and I bet you almost everybody who's like watching this video would be willing to do at least one thing on this list. I think almost everybody would be like willing to not eat pork. I know that's really easy. Like pretty much every Jew and Muslim does that, right? It's not a very hard standard. So like I say, you have to make ethics like convenient and easy for people, or they're not going to do it, right? Otherwise, it's just like telling them, give all your money to Africans, right? Give every dollar you have to Africa, be like a saint. That's not a realistic expectation for people, right? And it's not convenient to be vegan or vegetarian. It's extremely inconvenient, right? And there's a reason why like most Muslims are successful at not eating pork, but most vegetarians and vegans are not successful at staying vegetarian and vegan, right? So, that's something important to think about. We should all strive to be as ethical as we can, and I think having this much more nuanced discussion is going to have a lot of positive progress. I think like a lot of the things I'm proposing here are a hell of a lot more realistic and sustainable than veganism. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you have some ethical solutions for animal welfare, to improve animal welfare, or to fix animal welfare completely, well, let me know your thoughts in the comments.